for Nigeria in its political landscape from 1999 till date, the nation has witnessed uninterrupted democratic rule, but the journey has not been without its ups and downs. In continuation of our review of the different sectors, our political correspondent, Shewa Kimaloye, takes a look at some of the issues confronting the nation's politics.
How do you tell the story of a nation over the last 6 decades without looking at how it started and where we're coming from? And so this is the political journey of Nigeria since its independence in 1960. Almost 6 decades filled with loads of stories. These 59 years, and Nigeria has had over a dozen heads of governments and an average of one in about 4.5 years. Out of these leaders, 8 are military rulers, 5 are civilians or democratically elected leaders. Muhammadu Buhari and Olusegun Obasanjo have both led Nigeria in khaki uniform and mufti. Within the 59 years, about 29 years of military rule, and we have had 4 republics of 30 years of civilian interventions. And so after 59 years, has Nigeria lived up to expectations?
Shall we please rise?
Analysts will often diagnose Nigeria's problems differently. Well, some will say Nigeria's major challenges can be best categorized in these areas: leadership deficit, corruption, constitutional inadequacies. So I decided to consult eminent Nigerians and leaders of thought. I asked them, how far have we come as a nation?
We've been operating in fits and starts, and we had a lot of promise as the world's largest concentration of black people. But that promise remained unfulfilled.
This is not the expectation of the founding fathers of this country, that in 59 years, this is how far we can go.
We were at the height of hope as an emerging black nation. Today we have come down to the weltering valleys of desolation.
Another question is, why are we where we are?
I think where we got it wrong is where we started placing round pegs in square holes. If we had competent Nigerians running the country, things would not have gotten this bad.
Most of the leaders that we have under military or semi-military situation were people who come without a plan, without a program.
We got it wrong when the military came into our politics, changed our constitution, retained the name a Federal Republic of Nigeria, but turned it into a unitary Republic of Nigeria.
And so, what is the way forward for Nigeria?
Leadership requires certain talents. We have to look for people who have those talents to lead us.
I believe Nigeria can still make it, but that is if we survive the current threats to its future. Okay, the Nigerian people have to reinstate their faith in the Nigerian design, in the Nigerian dream, in the Nigerian way of living together. That, I think, is the ultimate.
Nigeria surely has tremendous potentials. As a country which is one of the world's most diverse nations, with almost 300 ethnic nationalities and almost 200 million people, the diversity and population could be great advantage if we indeed are ready to take them. Shewa Kimaloye, Channels Television News.
To further discuss this, we've been joined on the news at 10 by a senior lecturer of political science at the University of Lagos, Dr. Dele Ashiru. Thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you for this invitation.
Yeah, and I saw you smiling as you watched that report. A few things, just stuck out, while the report was going on. First of all, maybe I should begin by asking whether there is a Nigerian dream. Do you think there is one?
Well, I think that there's a Nigerian dream. The extent to which we are moving towards the realization of that dream may be a big question mark.
What is the Nigerian dream then?
At independence, the whole world looked up to Nigeria as the savior, of the black race in the world. And that was why Nigeria was referred to as the giant of Africa at that time. So the lofty ideals was for Nigeria to play a leadership role in the total emancipation of black people all over the world.
Right.
Unfortunately, the nature of the Nigerian state and the character of its elites, its political elites, is making that dream a mirage as we speak at the moment.
Yeah, and I heard some of the speakers there in the report also talk about the Constitution, which, they faltered. The Constitution that was created under the military regime, which they said, set us off on this path down the hill, so implied. And many others have also said, there is a defect in our Constitution. How do we fix that?
Well, yes, there's a defect in our Constitution. It is also true that the Constitution was handed down by the military. But for goodness sake, we have had 2 decades of civilian regime. And if the pointers are that the Constitution is defective, the critical question is, what are we doing today to change that narrative? Unfortunately, those who rule Nigeria today would rather have that Constitution because it gives them the latitude, of course, to do what they choose to do. And that's why it behoves of the Nigerian people to continue to insist that we require a constitutional and political change in Nigeria. The Constitution will not change if we don't change the nature of our polity, because the politics reinforces the kind of constitution that we have.
What about our leadership? It talks about certain talents that are needed to put certain people into positions of authority. Leadership recruitment process has often been criticized, and I know we've talked about the kind of leaders that we should have. How do we also fill that gap?
Well, it's rather unfortunate that in a country of over 140 million people, we are being led by not the first 11. Of course, in all sectors of Nigerian society, you find square pegs in round holes. You find misfits, being in critical sectors, critical positions of leadership. This must change if Nigeria must move forward. And I dare say that Nigeria is not in want of, such qualified Nigerians to lead the society, to lead state and society. But unfortunately, we have a political system that gratifies only those who either have been in the system or had acquired so much money and are using such resources to sustain their hold on the leadership of the country. So for that to change, there is the need to change the nature of politics, devolve power to the people. You find a situation where states, local government, all of them, they go to Abuja, to take from Abuja. Everybody wants to take from the national cake.
Right.
Nobody is thinking about baking the national cake. That narrative must change.
Yeah,
power must devolve to the people.
We need the right chefs in government, is what you're indirectly trying to say. Senior Lecturer of Political Science at the University of Lagos, Dr. Dele Ashiru, a pleasure having you on the News at 10.
Thank you for this invitation.
presidency has distanced itself from what it describes as an internet-based report and uninformed media commentary by some so-called support groups staging street demonstrations asking President Muhammadu Buhari to seek a third term. A statement from the presidency says there are no circumstances nor set of circumstances under which President Buhari may seek to amend the constitution regarding the two-term limit on holding office as president. According to the statement, President Buhari intends to serve his full second elected term in office, ending 2023, after which there will be a general election in which he will not be a candidate, and there is not even the faintest possibility that this will change. The statement adds that while there was a past attempt to change the constitution to allow for the then incumbent president to stand for a third term, no such thing will happen under President Buhari's watch because that attempt was wrong and unconstitutional. Let's switch gears to business news now. Here's Kayode Okikiolu.
You First. First Bank.
Well, many thanks, Amarachi, and you're welcome to Business News. In its bid to improve lending to the real sector of the economy, the central bank has again raised the minimum level of banks' loan-to-deposit ratio to 65%, and that's from 60% with immediate effect. The financial regulator says the decision, which is the second this year and is subject to quarterly review, is informed by appreciable growth in the level of the banking sector's gross credit. The CBN notes that gross credit of banking sector rose from 15.56 trillion naira as at May the 31st to 16.39 trillion naira at September the 26th, 2019, translating to 829.4 billion naira, or 5.33% increase within the period. The financial market regulator warns that failure to meet the minimum LDR before the end of 2019 will result in a levy of additional cash reserve requirement equal to 50% of the lending shortfall implied by the target LDR. In the meantime, the ratio of non-performing loans to total gross loans in Nigeria's banking sector declined to more than a three-year low at 9.30% as at June 2019, on the back of the Central Bank of Nigeria's policy that requires effective management of credit risk. Well, data released by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that the bank's NPL ratio was down 2.43 percentage points from 11.73% in the second quarter of 2016 to 9.30% in the corresponding quarter of 2019. In August, the central bank set new limits for banks and other financial institutions to ensure that the level of the NPLs in relation to gross loans does not exceed 5%. The total non-performing loans in the banking sector stood at 1.44 trillion naira at the end of the second quarter of 2019. And oil prices slipped today, starting off October negative as weak U.S. economic data trimmed global crude demand outlook. Brent crude futures lost 49 cents, or 0.8%, to $58.76 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude shed 67 cents, or 0.8%, to $53.62 per barrel. Oil futures also tracked a loss in equities, which similarly took a hit from the factory data out of the world's largest economy. In the meantime, crude production from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries fell to the lowest in 8 years in September at 28.9 million barrels per day, down 750,000 barrels from August's revised figure and the lowest monthly total since 2011. Well, Nigeria's stock market is closed today in commemoration of the Independence Day, but it's a negative start for U.S. stock markets after disappointing manufacturing data raised investors' concerns over the health of the U.S. economy. Well, let's find out how other major markets ended the day. Thank you for watching Business News Tonight. I am Kayode Okikiolu. The news at 10 continues with Amarachi.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Hong Kong police used live rounds on protesters today, shooting an activist in the chest. Plus, world number one Novak Djokovic cruises into second round of the Japan Open with flawless victory over Alexei Popyrin. We'll have more sports news. Please join us again.